Welcome, everyone, to Schofield's Flowers Social Hour, Best of 2020, Volume 2. Enjoy the shows.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, if you were smart back in March, and you got into the market back in March, you're flying high right now.
Oh, yeah.
Just imagine if you had invested in Zoom in March. How crazy.
Yeah.
That stock has taken.
Unfortunately, I wasn't smart enough. But
Yeah.
anyways,
I think we all were. It's like, well, how much is $169 a share? Now it's like 400 or something. It's crazy.
I feel like I bought all my stocks, in February and March, and then by April, I had to I'm going to hold on to this one for the long term and double down and buy some more, and hedge my bets. And now I feel like I'm just now breaking even from it. But I mean, I heard some good ones, like you're saying, like Zoom, and like the S&P index was a really good one that I jumped on. I think Mike Cuban talked about that one.
Sunrun's another big one that's taken off big time, from then. And, there's
which one?
Sunrun it's called. And, if you guys are interested in cannabis stocks, there's a stock called GrowGen, which is a growth generation, which is basically the Home Depot for cannabis cultivators, whether it's, commercial or individual. And their stock has just been skyrocketing. And to have a stock in the cannabis space really do well is pretty amazing. But, they had been I think pre-pandemic, I'm going to say they were like 4 or 5 or something, and now they're at like 15. I'm going to tell you right now today, just where they're at. Let me just see something here. So
I pulled it up, and they were on April 6th. They were at $3.16 a share.
Yeah.
And now they peaked in middle of August at $22, but they're still at $15.95. So.
And that's a great cannabis stock, because they don't touch the plant. So, and their sales have been off the charts, I think for the last 5 quarters. So that's not even just because of COVID. They own like 27 shops, full disclosure, I own the stock. They own 27 stores, and there's a lot more on the horizon for them. But I mean, these guys are literally the Home Depot of the cannabis industry, and they're definitely, going to obviously going head to head with guys like Home Depot. And I think it's called Scott is another one, which is obviously much more expensive, but it's a more of a nutrient play in the cannabis space. But there's some plays that have been really incredible, and if you look at some of these stocks, back in March, that just tanked because of COVID. Now all of a sudden they're reaping the benefits like the rest of the cannabis industry. I think you might start seeing other stocks within the space start to pop as well.
Live from the sewing floor at LC King Manufacturing. We're in downtown Bristol, which is in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains. We're in rural Appalachia, and I'm sitting here on the sewing floor. I got sewers behind me. I got sewers in front of me. So you're in for a treat if you hear a lot of buzz and noise, because people are actually making clothes right now as we're talking.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. That's great. So, Nicole, I'll let you get right into it, because you're the fashion maven here.
Well,
I just wear it well.
Yeah, exactly. That's the model today.
And you're looking so sharp.
Exactly. Yeah. So looking back at your guys' impressive history, been around since 1913. The company originally founded from your great grandfather, whose steps you followed in. I mean, basically, I wanted to introduce you as the closest thing to Levi Strauss that you're going to find here in America. Never is sold out, gone overseas. You guys have kept it right there in Bristol since then. So, I mean, that's amazing. Basically,
well, what's really unique is we're still sewing in the original factory we started in. And so we've been here for 107 years. And we started in one part of the building, which is in the next room. And in the late 20s, we built the room that I'm standing in. And in the 1940s, we built the 4th room that's attached to the building as well. So it's a 55,000 square foot sewing factory located in a rural downtown in Tennessee at the corner of 7th and Shelby.
Wow, that's amazing, Jack. And I mean, one of the reasons I was so impressed, I read your history and I was wearing your clothes, and people always come up and say, God, I love that jacket you got, And so then I started reading your history, and it's like, oh my God, this is no different than Schofield's flowers. My grandfather started it in 1896. We sold it, and my mom sold it after my dad died in 76, and then I brought back the brand like 2.5, 3 years ago, and we're rocking and rolling now. And we've got the podcast. We're talking about doing some collabs.
Well, that's what was sort of funny. So I'm like, why is a florist calling me to do a podcast? I don't know much about hydrangeas, and I don't know much about orchids, but I do know about how to do the 3-needle French fell, and I know how to do top stitch, safety stitch, and stuff like that. But I couldn't understand why a florist was calling me to do a podcast, and I'm pretty glad. I've responded back to say, hey, who is this cat?
Didn't know I was from the mob. The minute he heard that, he picked up the phone.
Well, you never know. Yeah.
Well, I love watching your IG a couple weeks ago when the guy said, "Who wears this stuff?" And he got hammered. He got hammered. It was like, I do, motherfucker. Look at me. I'm looking good.
Exactly. People who want to look tasteful in public.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I think that's a good segue to like to me. I wear it to the nicest restaurants. I wear it if I'm on the red carpet. Yeah, I wear it everywhere. And then yet I go on my motorcycle trip and I got it on too. So boots.
But you want to hear something funny? Scof, the jacket you're wearing was one of the costumes or one of the outfits that Goody Mob used to wear when they were performing. They would wear that jacket and along with a matching pair of Lot 32 LCs, which is that denim with the 3-needle white stitching. Goody Mob used to wear that as their uniform in their bands.
Wow.
I don't know if you remember them or not. Yeah.
I don't, but we're going to have to pull them up and definitely check that out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's way back when, probably from the mid-90s. I just remember shipping them, and because we used to sell to a customer down in Atlanta called Ross Unlimited, and that's where all the rappers used to go and buy all their stuff. And I know Goody Mob went in and bought all their stuff for their band one time.
That's awesome.
That's some look up on the Google Goody Mob.
Yeah. Love that.
Scof, I agree though. Like with my jacket, I wear it. It's my going out jacket. I wear it when I go to like tiki bars if it's cooler out. Maybe a flower Hawaiian shirt underneath or something too. But I got engaged in this jacket up in the mountains. I use it as a raincoat though too because I waxed mine. So now it's waterproof, and so I can, the 3 times a year it rains here, I've got a raincoat.
We've kept it true to what it really is. It's workwear. It's not something that's fancy, but you know what? It looks great on.
Yeah.
And if you can actually sew it and it lasts, and really it's the construction that leads to why it looks so good on your body. It just holds up. It fades as it should be worn, and it actually just it just holds its shape and hand is what it's called.
Yeah, the stitching. So, I love the stitching.
Yeah, because that's exactly how because it's made with machines that were brought in here in the 30s and the 40s. We still have those machines here today, and so that's why it looks so good and lasts so long, and that just adds to its own uniqueness because not many people can say, hey, that was sewn on a piece of machinery that came in the 30s. Actually, if you've got a pair of carpenter jeans and you got a hammer loop on it, that hammer loop was actually cut on a machine that came in here in 1918. We still run it today. It's a cutting machine.
That is crazy. So
like the jacket, the brown duck jacket you have is completely different pattern. Scof's got the new pattern, but it's only been repatterned twice in its life.
That's great. You've talked about the machines a little bit. I'm curious, what's the I guess difficulty of upkeep and keeping those running since they're so old and obviously they're made well and they just need maintenance and parts, but I don't think there's a factory just making parts for machines made in the 20s, 30s, 80s, whatever.
Yeah. Well, because a lot of what you can do is you can substitute parts, but we have part catalogs from all these machines, and so you just go out and you buy that one unique size die or whatever you're looking for, but there are plenty of part suppliers out there. And then one of the things we do is when we take a machine space off service off the floor. We put it up on the third floor, and then we just start robbing parts from it. Because one of the felling machines we ended up taking apart last summer and started just harvesting all the parts from it. So we have a bunch of skeletons up on the third floor of machines that we go in and just grab parts on. And I've got a sewing machine mechanic, one of my mechanics, he's a mechanic here, not here, but a mechanic for 40 years. So he knows everything there is about, a geared sewing machine versus an electronic sewing machine. So we don't have many things that have computer boards or anything like that.
Well,
they're mainly just gears and washers and stuff like that.
We got tattoos and everything. The tattoo, the machine the same from I don't know how many years ago. Probably. Yeah, same thing. And the ink goes in your skin deeper, and it's a darker tone to it because of that kind of machinery that is used versus it all being electronically pushed into you, know, and regulated that way. It's a completely different application. Yeah, interesting.
Been up to a lot. Well, since I guess I don't know if anyone would know, but I met Scof in 2016 at the beginning when I was I was a senior in college, and so I started working for Scof as a PA.
Yeah, this is your big moment. You've never been on. You've always tried to get on, but we just shoo you off. Tell your story, Tommy.
Yeah, that's great. You're you're a hard worker, dude.
Yeah, well, I started as PA, and then started editing some videos for Scof too. Then graduated, and I think it was the next year when you started the podcast though.
Yeah.
I think it was like summer-ish, 2017. I want to say.
Yeah. So I do film stuff. I do music. I don't even know where to begin, but.
Well, let's see. You did a few episodes with us, and then you got hired on to some big rock movie. Is that right?
Yeah, Skyscraper. It's a Dwayne Johnson movie. But yeah, once that started, I couldn't. I was there 70 to 80 hours a week. It was every single day, long hours. So I couldn't really be your PA anymore. So my bad. That's on me. But yeah.
And then, so I know that since you left, the first thing you did is you got into being an editor for the movies and things like that. Then you became a surf instructor to keep you going.
Yeah, so I do a lot of different things, but the surf instructor one was pretty funny. So after one of the movies ended, I went to the beach because I didn't have a job. I was probably just going to the beach, but I saw people giving surf lessons, and I was like, and I've surfed one time at this point, but I couldn't actually stand up or anything. But I just went up to the guy and asked if he needed help to give lessons, and he said, I got to see you in the water first. Maybe we'll schedule a time next week to see you in the water, see if you're all right. I'm like, okay. I got home, but I got a text from him about 2 hours later. Actually, can you give a lesson tomorrow morning? I'm like, yep, I guess this is happening. So I had to YouTube how to surf and then also how to give lessons. And then I went to the beach the next day. And
ever since, surfer. That's great.
Ever since I've been surfing a lot though, and I still give lessons on the side when I'm not doing, other things. But yeah, at first it was pretty bad though. People always, I was a terrible instructor the first few weeks. Yeah.
Well, the hardest thing about, I don't know, Freddie, have you surfed before?
Never.
It's hard. It's like you're on the board and it's wiggling, right? Like back and forth like this. And then you got to really.
You got to let go. You got to let go of the side, Scof.
You got to pop up. You got to pop up. But my belly always got in the way of my pop up. So I get it all. And then, you go off. So I've gotten up a few times, but catching a wave is so hard.
Yeah.
But
sounds like you need some lessons, man. I know a guy.
I know a guy.
Yeah, Freddie, we should go out and take lessons from
Dude,
Tommy.
that would be hilarious.
GoPros and front.
But I need a Scof Speedo if I'm doing it.
Oh.
I got one for you.
Perfect.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna get it.
It was good
anybody that comes from Boston is going to be a hard worker, and get the job done. And I'm super happy for you, Tommy. I know that you also had your musical, right? And now you also tell us about the musical called Jeff. And I mean, I was out of town, but I know Jesse, my producer, went to, or my PR person went to. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So on the side, I also, well, now it's become more than just the side because I have a band now too. But I started in film. I always loved, making movies, short films, and documentaries and whatnot. But then the love for music came when my roommate, he's an incredible piano player. So we'd always just like write these stupid songs, and it kind of just started as a joke. But they got better and better, and we had this kind of funny idea that if Jeff had a brother named Jeff, if Jesus had a brother named Jeff, and he was just like God's other son, that's like a total loser. But then we just started putting songs down, and over like 2 years we wrote a musical, and then once we had it, I had worked on a few movies at this point at Universal and Warner Brothers, so I knew some film people, and we got a bunch of actors and a band together. We rehearsed it, and I invited like everybody I know in the film industry and put on a musical for the first time.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know what?
People like it.
Yeah, and it's the thing is that I've never been one to say like I can't do that. I just go do it.
Right? Yeah. No, me either.
And you just go do it, and that's it's and if you would have, luckily it went well. But even if you fail when you try something, that's even if you fail and you try something, then you tried it, and it's off it's off the checklist, right?
And that's how this music thing happened. I wrote this like funk song, and I was like, I don't know who the hell could sing this song. So I went to this church. It's called West Angeles Church in Crenshaw, and one day I just went, and I was like, I got this song. Can I talk to someone in your choir? Maybe I could pay them, $100 to come just sing it for me. And they're like, they brought me to the music department, and the lady there was like, maybe this guy Cedric would want to do that. And I left my number. I think like an hour or two later, I got a text from a guy named Cedric saying, hey, I'm interested in doing it. And next thing you know, about a week later, he comes in. Well, we meet for coffee first, just so, he would probably want to make sure that I wasn't, very sketchy, which I'm surprised he didn't think I was.
So two people I should introduce you to, and you guys should get out and meet, is Riley Urich. Riley is fantastic.
I know Riley.
You remember Riley, right?
Yeah, he it was before he quit. He was there.
Oh, no. I was there when he on that episode.
Yeah. When we had Riley and Tempo. Yeah.
Okay.
It was before you quit.
We had Riley and Tempo. And then the day you wore your wetsuit. Cedric, we told everybody to wear suits, and he showed up with his wetsuit on.
Oh man!
Of course, it was planned that way, but And Tommy, you acted really good on that. You acted like what the fuck, man?
Tommy the PA and Tommy in real life are vastly different characters. This Tommy
God.
the PA guy is the biggest buffoon you've ever met. And then, Tommy the non-PA is writing musicals and music and learning how to surf off YouTube and then teaching people, I'm assuming, enough to keep getting work. So
No, you should look at my Google reviews.
Oh my gosh.
I actually have pretty good reviews as a surfer.
And Google doesn't lie.
Wow.
No. These are real.
Wait till they see this. I'm going to tag your review to this episode and they can learn how you don't know how to surf.
And you know what, Tommy, you'll probably get a job someday off of your great acting skills off of the wetsuit, and next thing you know, you'll be calling me, you're like in the new movie Sea Hunt. Playing
I heard Aquaman 2 is casting right now. I mean, you could probably get a role there.
I might start auditioning for things. I like acting. I've been acting in these stupid videos that we make too. That we put
on they're great, dude.
It's fun. And
they're great.
I might go for it.
How did you become a stripper then? I know there's different names for it. I know you do pole dancing and there's exotic dancing, but from pre-talking to you, it's stripping, and you're a stripper at probably one of the greatest places in America as far as I'm concerned. Because it's just classy. It's sort of like the 1920s, speakeasy type feel, and yet it's got a little bit of your neighborhoody bar type of thing that you just want to go there. How did you wind up getting into that? Because I know you mentioned you're from Minnesota and things like that.
Yeah. So, I lived in Minneapolis. I'm from Seattle, Washington, but I moved to Minneapolis to dance with a ballet company there.
Wow.
And yeah, I've been a ballet dancer for 24 years.
Wow.
And so I danced with a company called James Sewell Ballet out there. And I was really enjoying it. And I, took advantage of the nightlife on Hennepin Avenue and downtown Minneapolis and uptown Minneapolis. And I got into a long distance relationship and thought, okay, well, now I'm participating in this relationship on an artist's salary and we can't afford to see each other. So what can I do? I didn't have like bartending skills or like anything like that. I've always just been a dancer. So I thought, I should like find out if one of these clubs that I'm frequenting is hiring and they would want to have me there. So I started dancing at a club called the Gay 90s, which is like a plethora of ironically clown houses or clown rooms because there's like a disco room, a hip hop room, a drag show, a pool table room. Like there's like all these different, it's like 2 or 3 stories. And so you could kind of like pick which room that you were going to entertain in on any given night.
In Minneapolis.
Yeah, in Minneapolis. And so I started working there and at across the street at the Exchange and at the Poorhouse.
Right.
And that was more like go-go dancing. So I was kind of, at the Gay 90s, there was stripper poles on top of the bar, but there was like this much space to dance around and not kick people's drinks over.
Yeah.
So I didn't start learning more like pole tricks until I started working at Jumbo's Clown Room and had like more space to actually like thank you, Chris. to have more space to like explore movement and what I was really capable of. And I didn't actually take a pole class until like 2 years after I started pole dancing because I have this technical ballet background and jazz and salsa dancing and hip hop, and I thought like, well, this is just a prop for me. This is a solid partner that I can like grab onto and like flip upside down, and I trust my body and its capabilities. So it was really fun for me to like come up with my own way of pole dancing. A canned cocktail company that approached us, and it's Live Wire Drinks. And they our neighborhood bar, Jumbo's neighborhood bar, is called Harvard and Stone, and they're right up on Harvard and Hollywood. And their like lead bartender Aaron Polsky started this company and founded Live Wire Drinks, and it started with a couple other bartenders. So Joey and him decided that they were going to figure out how to do canned cocktails that didn't have to be refrigerated, which means that they can be sourced wide, to a wider audience, and it doesn't require like in the shipment process, it doesn't require refrigeration, which is really cool. I think. And they ship it right to your door. It's $19.99 for a pack of 4 cocktails. They have 3 flavors right now. It includes gin, vodka, and rye whiskey. But they're working on, I think, 4 more flavors with different famous bartenders around the world now. They've widened outside of Harvard and Stone to really make this like as successful as a company as they can. So we're really, really lucky to have them want to be a part of our brand too, as Cyber Clown Girls.
And once this COVID thing gets over with, I also host the Schofield's Flowers Social Club. And that's why we went with the social hour. And it's great. And I bring in burlesque. Charlotte is one. I don't know if you know Charlotte. I had to look up her last name, but we opened up Schofield's Flowers at Sassafras. And then Charlotte's boyfriend, now husband, ran the place. And then I wanted to have definitely burlesque. And then we always spin jazz. And so we do it over at Lunetta all day. We take over at his back bar. And we decorated the flower shop up because I come from a mob flower shop. I grew up at Schofield's Flowers, where Dan O'Banion, the Irish gangster, was killed by Al Capone. So that's the whole reason we started up the podcast, because I wrote a book of short stories that got picked up by the Mob Museum, and then it led to us doing a social night at Lunetta, and then we built out an experiential job for ourselves for the flower shop and Lunetta to draw people in. It was a huge hit, and out of it, I just got a Netflix campaign that I just was doing an art exhibit for the
Congratulations.
Yeah. So, and now here we're talking with, one of the best strippers I know online. And I love it. So I love your type of flavor coming into our social club and having fun. That's what this is supposed to be about. And I had fun watching you guys. I was like, you guys got to get on. You got to get on. Texting her, I'm texting him, and I'm texting everybody I know.
It was like the same day that the article came out, and then I had shot it over to him, and then I think he tuned into the show, which was I guess the same day or maybe a couple days after.
It's crazy when I think about it that I was delivering flowers to Sam Giancana.
That's insane. Yeah,
it's insane, right? I mean, I knew him like an uncle. I mean, I would deliver flowers to him once a week. And it would either be at La Bastile's, which was on Superior, and or whatever restaurant. And my dad would, before we went out, would tell me, make sure you wear a pocket shirt because you're going to go deliver flowers to Sammy G. I'm like, all right, cool. And that's what we call him.
Sammy G.
Sammy G. Yeah. And I'd walk up and into the restaurant. The restaurant would be totally closed just for him. Sold out, and there are two cars, parked like you'd see in a movie with the gangsters, like in The Godfather.
Oh yeah,
trench coats, the whole long, jackets and everything, guns underneath, and shotguns underneath. And they'd search me. I'm 14 years old, walking into the place. Then I'd walk in. There's another guard, and there's one behind him, and they'd check me out, and then they'd make sure they'd open up the block. He'd always be a box of roses, so they'd check and make sure there was no gun in the box. And I mean, so I'd go in and he'd signal, come on over, and I'd walk over and I'd go, hi, Mr. Giancana. And he'd go like this to me. And I go, Sammy G. And he goes, and who calls me that? My father. And I'd go, my father and I. It would be like every day, every time I ever saw him, it was a routine, it was like a comedy routine, right? And then he'd say, all right, kid, you've been good? Yeah. He's give the flowers to the dame. He always called the girls the dame. And they were just bursting out of their dress, looking, smoking hot like Marilyn Monroe, who he dated and might have even killed, and along with the Kennedys, right?
Right.
And a lot of people don't know that. When I tell them that, they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, they put him in office, and then he went after him, and so they said, get rid of him, right?
Oh man, his story is just, it's so crazy, like his dealings with all that, and just, I don't know. And by the time you delivered flowers to him, he was probably a very worried guy, like he was probably very paranoid, I'd say, but he had all this crap under him, like up until that point. Yeah. So I can only imagine, but that's so.
What is some of the crap? Do you know? I mean, what are some of the things that you know?
Well, the supposed involvement to try to kill Fidel Castro.
Right.
The whole Kennedy thing, him and JFK dated the same woman at the same time, I believe. I'd have to check.
And Joe and Bobby too.
Oh, it's insane.
She was apparently. I mean, I'm sorry to say that, but that's the true story of it.
Yeah. Apparently, the father, Joe Kennedy, was a boot.
Yeah, he was a major bootlegger.
Yeah,
that's where they made all their money.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, that's probably made a lot. Yeah, it was a good payday for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So I mean,
prohibition, man, that's just crazy.
it's crazy, right? I mean, for me, it was like, I give the girl the flowers, and then he'd look at me, and then he'd go, "Junior, eyes left." I'm like, "Sorry, I got carried away." I'm looking at this, like I look like the Mask, where the eyeballs are flying.
Oh yeah, for sure. Part two, yeah.
He'd ask me if I was good, and I say, "Yeah," and then lean over and he'd give me one of these on the face and tell your old man I said hi, and he'd slip a hundo in my pocket, a C-note every time. And he had a wad of cash like this because there were no credit cards then.
Oh no,
and
no.
There were no. It was always cash on everything or check, right?
Yeah.
And so I'd go, and before I leave, sometimes he'd say, "Hey, Junior, come here. I want you to drop this off down the street at the cleaners." And I'd be dropping off a yellow envelope at the cleaners. Who's going to stop me, right? And it was right down the road. So I don't. And when I was a kid, and then he'd throw another hundo in my pocket.
Of course.
So
of course.
It's crazy. So when I start talking about like Sam Giancana and stuff like that, and I tell them like, yeah, he probably got the Kennedys killed and blah blah blah, and they're like, what?
I have no doubt.
They think I'm bullshit, and I'm like, well, just look up Sam Giancana and you'll see it. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you.
Very well known. The newspapers of the day reported it quite extensively, and it's just well known. You can talk to, I mean, his house is like 4 blocks away from me where I live.
Yeah, I saw it, and I like that you have the cemeteries and the houses.
And the houses, yeah. They started. That's what are those? They're called highlights on your Instagram. They're called highlights on your Instagram. Yeah. So like, I'm gonna do that one, and then I'm gonna think of a couple other ones. Like, I don't know. Well, we'll see. Yeah, I started doing that and kind of making it like a consistent, like it all kind of ties together. So.
But I mean, this house is like the house for Giancana. That's where he was killed.
Yeah, he was killed in the basement, and it's right there. Like I drove by it the other day because I take my kid to a park right there.
Right.
There's a park down the street, so I take my kid to that park, right?
You brought it up earlier when I asked you about there was when O'Banion was shot. There was a black gentleman inside still in the place in the flower shop, and he got out of there through the back door.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, what was he? He was a porter or something like that?
Yeah, he was a porter, and I the Tribune mentions that he was a witness, that he actually was, and they said in the Tribune that when they were interviewing him, he was like trembling. He was terrified.
Yeah.
What he just witnessed. I mean, I would be too, right?
Yeah.
And there's like I found another picture of him at O'Banion's funeral.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's one floating out there, and because there's like a couple pictures of him, and apparently he was the only witness, I think, to it. But he definitely made a statement for the paper.
Right.
Yeah. And I think in Boardwalk Empire, I think Van Alden is that guy's character. I think the FBI agent, I think, is the porter.
What happened to the guys that did kill O'Banion?
So it's kind of widely known that it was like two Sicilian gunmen and Frankie Yale.
Yeah.
And apparently Frankie Yale was apparently killed by the Capone gang. They went out to New York and killed Frankie Yale because he was stealing liquor shipments from Capone.
Yeah, well, then there you go.
Yeah, there you go. So he and
stealing money to be a Hollywood star.
Right, and Frankie Yale was apparently Al Capone's first boss in Coney Island. Yeah.
Wow.
So they were in business together, but that went south. So some gunmen went to New York and killed Frankie Yale, and the other two guys, the actual shooters that shot O'Banion, were supposedly killed by Capone himself at a party. The two, it was John Scalise and Albert Anselmi. I think that's how you pronounce it, Anselmi. They wanted to move up in the organization. They wanted to overthrow Capone. And apparently this got word of that got to Capone, and under the ruse of like throwing a party for them, apparently he killed them at this party.
Wow.
And their bodies were found like I think towards Indiana, like on the side of a road. So
And if he killed him, he beat him to death.
oh yeah, no, for sure you have to, I guess.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just goes to show like when you lived this life of a gangster, like you pretty much were either going to jail or you were dying, you know. Some of these guys, like they either die rich or they die very poor.
Well, I mean, also they were so young. I mean,
Yeah,
most of
totally.
them died in their early 30s.
Yeah, and I think Capone took over the Chicago outfit when he was like 23.
Yeah.
Something crazy like that.
Yeah, that's nuts.
I know.
Crazy.
Yeah, I know. It just goes to show you that I think life either moved quicker back then or people just died younger. I don't know.
I was funneling beers, in college and
Yeah. Yeah.
chasing girls, and that's about it, and here's Capone running this,
$1 million
huge organization, calling hits on people,
Yeah.
rum running, all that stuff. And I'm like, living at home, doing the college life thing.
Nursing a hangover, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then the cemeteries, I mean, I see the one cemetery in Mount Carmel Cemetery. That's where like they all rest, right? It's crazy how many people are there.
I would say about 75% of them are buried there. And then there's other old graveyards in Chicago that, like one victim of the massacre is buried at, and they're like sprinkled around, but it's all centered at Mount Carmel. And that's like, that's where Capone and all of his brothers are buried. All of his brothers, his mother and father are there.
I think one of my favorite things has always been kind of that, almost that Disneyland funness to it. Obviously Trader Sam's has it. When you order a shipwreck, the ship, goes, or you got the volcano. Another one that I saw is Undertow in Phoenix.
Oh yeah.
It has like portholes on the side. So as you're just sitting there, it's as if you're going down like a Amazon River. And then
cool.
every so often, like the lights go out and all of a sudden they play a sound of like a dart being thrown, and then a spotlight goes onto this dart that's always been there, but you've never noticed it until they did that.
Oh my God, that's so
and
good.
so it's almost like a drink in a show instead of a dinner in a show. It's like a drink in a show, and it's just like, I don't know, it just has that like Disney magic to it. And obviously, Trader Sam's does it so well. But to be able to have that at other places, False Idol has a little bit of that. I've always like envisioned, like if I ever own my own bar, like you got to have some sort of like Disney magic in it.
Yeah, that place is amazing. One of the owners of Undertow, Jason Asher, I think he's really creative that way, and kind of, I know he's worked with Thor. You guys familiar with Thor? He's like artist, tiki artist, but they've been doing some amazing stuff. I think the Undertow, I think they had to relocate it. Did you?
I don't know what I know, because it's in a former like Valvoline oil change kind of a setup. So you actually, where the workers would go down to do your oil change is where the bar's located, inside of a coffee shop. But then next door they got another spot, and it's like more of like a whiskey bar. And they have a train that's inside of it, and you go in there and it's like as if you're riding a train. Again, it has like the LED screen, so you're sitting there like at a bar in a train, just like going around. So they've done some really cool stuff just in the overall bar scene.
That's super cool. It's when they were opening that place, there's like 4 big tikis they wanted me to carve in there. But at the time I was a pool guy and I couldn't take even like a few days off to go out there and carve them. So that was one of my regrets. I'm like, someday when I'm full time, I'll be able to do what I want.
Yeah.
But that place is amazing. Hi. my little daughter. Here, come say hi.
Oh yeah. Have her say hi.
Yeah.
Looks like she just got out of a bath. Can you say hi?
Hey, welcome.
Hi, honey.
Hello.
How are you?
Can you tell them your name?
My name is Violet.
Hey, Violet.
Nice to meet you, Violet.
Can you say bye-bye?
Well, what's What's their name?
That's a great question. How rude.
All right.
I agree. I'm Nicola.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Chris.
Yay. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
A man named Chris.
We have another man. My
Nice.
good friend's name is Chris. All right.
Sounds like a good guy.
Yeah, I think I was telling you we got a bunch of mugs. I wish we could show more of the mugs. I do have one of the ones we released fairly
So
recently.
Oh my God. That's so
got
beautiful.
The sunbathing Bertha.
I'd probably walk up and try and grab a bite of it because I thought it would be a chocolate whatever, right?
Oh God. I'm a chocoholic. I wish it was chocolate.
Beautiful.
So these are really rad. These were sculpted by my buddy Thor, who works with me, and it's really awesome. I get to draw the stuff I wish I could sculpt, and then he sculpts it for me. But,
what a great partnership.
Oh, that's
yeah. So
Cool.
the detail on this, I actually put a whole bunch of straws in this. I got the fake ice in there. It never melts.
Nice.
Nice. Well, we did a collaboration.
Cool.
We just did a collaboration on a smoking jacket, and
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, I mean, her designs are fantastic, and I just like, God, I always wanted to make a smoking jacket. She's like, let's do it, and here we are, and we made a most beautiful sheet design, and she made it up, and
oh, that's cool.
Talk about it, and what colors, and what we should do, and a collab. That's what we did, and it was fantastic. I mean, I can't be more proud of what we.
I've always wondered, like, where does that term "smoking jacket" come from?
Well, his daughter told me for the first time. I didn't know either, and it was basically back in like the Mad Men era when husbands would be smoking and having their martinis or whatever after work, and they would put it on over their suit so that the wife wouldn't smell the smoke. Or when they'd come to dinner, they would, you know, they wouldn't have the smoke on them essentially because it would have been whatever absorbed by the jacket.
Yeah, my wife is a great sculptor, but we couldn't do as realistic stuff. But now we can, working with my buddy Thor. He's just incredible. So it's super fun.
It looks like it. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, like all the little texture and yeah.
So insanely cute.
So is that like a limited edition? I mean, how many, or will always be up there? And if somebody wants it, you already have the mold. Is that what you guys do? You carve it, you put it into a molding, and then it gets built like that?
Yeah. I mean, we these ones we're having made overseas. So yeah. So I mean, right now we're just basically making kind of what's pre-sold. And then after that, then we just move on to new designs. Yeah. I don't think we're going to keep continuing, doing the same designs, just to keep it fresh and to keep it so it's special.
I think something that I've noticed is like the mugs end up becoming its own like currency. Like some mugs become like so coveted, and then like you buy them for normal, what I'd consider normal pricing, somewhere in that like $50 to $200 mark, and then next thing you know, like they're worth like $500 just because it became a one of those designs someone really wanted, and people are always trying to get them because they sold out super quick or whatever. And so it's kind of fun to see on the on some different groups that I follow, like the mug trading and what those markups are, and you're like, holy cow, like you could have got that on for a fraction of the cost, and if you held on to it for a few years, it just gained its like momentum, and next thing you know, it's worth like so much more. Not that I'm not really into that side of the tiki mugs. I use mine and I drink out of them, and I enjoy them. And unfortunately, there's been a few casualties of them, but you just move on to the next one. Kind of like you said, it's like, all right, well, I didn't have room on my shelf anyway, so I guess now I can get that one I've always wanted.
Yeah, no, that is a surprise for sure. And like originally, before I hooked up with Tiki Land, I was doing pre-sales because I didn't kind of know like how many to make, and I wanted to make enough so that everyone who wanted them would get them, thinking that would like alleviate the jacked up prices after. But then it still happened. So then it's cool that us tiki mug artists are a part of something that a lot of people want, and it's growing. So yeah, I guess we'll meet that threshold. I don't know about $1,000 mugs yet. So yeah, we 3D print it, and then the method after that is the same method that they've been using for thousands of years. You make a plaster mold, and then from that plaster mold, you pour in liquid clay. Liquid clay dries just along the edge where it's touching the plaster, because the plaster sucks the moisture out. And then you pour the liquid out, and you're left with like a shell of what becomes the hollow mug. And that's, I mean, essentially it's been the same for, thousands of years. So it's pretty cool.
That was the part I always wondered, is how the whole is made.
Yeah, that's it. It's like magic shell ice cream.
Right.
Speaking of cars and something that you've created, I'd love to kind of hear what, came about with the Land Rover, how that project became something. And because I love seeing, you're driving around and seeing it in person. It's like, it's that Disney magic when it's, parked up and the smoke's coming out of it and everything.
So that seriously is like a dream come true. I have a 1964 Chevelle Malibu convertible that my parents gave me when I was basically 16. Cool. And that was like I loved it. It was an awesome car. And I remember telling my wife, like, the only thing I think I could ever trade or sell this for would be a Land Rover, a vintage Land Rover. And then like a year later or so, I drew like my dream Land Rover with like racks and like cargo all over it. And then I posted it on Instagram, and a friend who I kind of knew her, she's like, I have that exact car. She's like, I inherited that car and a bunch of cars. It's been sitting for over 20 years. If you can get it running and get it to look like your drawing, you can have it for free. I'm like, no, like, this doesn't happen. So went and checked it out. It was out at a field like up in Upper Ventura, kind of near Ojai.
That's crazy.
And it was crazy. It was sitting there. And then maybe a month or two later, I trailered it home. I found a mechanic who worked on my other car. And then over the course of like 2 months, he got it running, and we redid the brakes and everything. And that was almost 3 years ago. And I drive it probably almost every other day. And it's,
oh God, that's great.
That's a dream. So I also had my buddy Typhoon Tommy.
I love these names.
I'm Machine Gun Scof.
so Typhoon Tommy, I forget how he got the nickname, but
Typhoon Tommy.
he's actually from Florida, but he works for Disney and Universal. He does like faux finish painting and all sorts of construction stuff. So he did the faux finish rust paint job all over it.
Wow.
And then my buddy Trader Brandon.
Love it. I want a geeky name. Okay.
So Trader Brandon was the Imagineer behind Trader Sam's. So he helped me with like getting cool vintage cargo and stuff for it. And they both worked together at Walt Disney World, and then they went to Universal, and So anyway, so they helped me get it going. And at first I was like, I don't know if I could rust paint this, because I come from the classic car world where it's like you get the car perfect and glossy and smooth. And then once he started putting the rust on, I was like, that's it. Like it brought you into that escapist world of like adventure, and it can be parked anywhere. Like when I take it out places and there's like people looking at it, they're like, did this really come from the jungles? Because I have like a license plate from Guatemala. And I was just like, oh yeah. I mean, I have a new holiday glass that's coming out.
I think I saw those too. Yeah.
What else? I have like for like tiki cocktail culture. I have a cool mallet, which
I saw the mallet too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see that. I didn't see it.
Are the shirts too?
It's based on this
so badass.
I need a Scof mallet like that. I need my head on that.
This is what it's based off of. This is the carved one I carved probably 20 years ago. So now I have, like,
excuse me, that is awesome.
That is nuts.
Wow.
I have them laser carved now, so I don't have to carve every single one. I was carving them this summer, and then I got an order for probably 20 of them, and it took far too long to do them all. The new ones now are laser carved.
That is awesome.
For a game show, it's perfect. You're bonk. You're out of
So
here.
most people know it's for smashing your ice.
Yeah.
We could have used one about an hour ago.
It's my logo right there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Put that on one of the ice.
Put one of that on. Yeah, don't be my face. Use the other side. Look at me while you're hitting it.
What about do you have any wacky taxidermy that's available?
Oh, you know what? They're not even on the site yet. I actually forgot about them. So these will be on the site.
Oh wow.
So good.
Oh yeah, and then I
gosh.
have another one.
I'm joining the mailing list.
I have a blue and green one with like a really long neck. It kind of looks like Kevin from Up. If you cut his head off and mounted him.
See, I think.
And that was kind of my start as my first job was door to door to businesses as a non-Mormon guy trying to break into just a place where that's the culture everywhere, you know? So it was a tough world, but I was making $100,000 a year selling printers.
Wow.
And I kind of just thought, you know, this was it. This was the life, right out of college. And then I realized a couple things. I realized I liked sales, or I could do sales, and I hated printers. Printers just did nothing for me. And we didn't even sell good printers either. This was not like a world-class establishment where we were selling super high-end stuff. Like, we were selling really faulty things. We were doing some shady stuff as a company. So what I did is I actually left that job for a minor league baseball sales gig with an $18,000 a year base salary. Really just as I like sports. I love baseball. I kind of grew up going to Salt Lake Bees games. That was the name of the team. And so, yeah, let's see where this goes. And then it took off and magic happened. And it's one of those things, you hear the story a lot in sports of people just kind of get into it and they don't really know what they're in for. They just think this is a cool job to do for now.
Oh, yeah.
And then you blink and you spend 6 years in the industry, or, you know, we talk to people that have spent 15 years with the same team or in the industry. So it's crazy. So I after time in minor league baseball, I went to work for the Utah Jazz. I left the Jazz to go work for the LA Dodgers. There's a pretty crazy story there that we tell on episode 2 of our show of Hot Coffee, Cold Beer. And then the Dodgers, there's this infamous cut day basically where they hire about 15 people, young people in sales. They keep one, and then the other 14 are kind of out on their ass trying to figure out what they want to do next. And that was where I stumbled upon a beautiful opportunity at Staples Center. I'm a lifelong Lakers fan, so that helped. And it's a wild ride. We are a very well-buttoned organization. It's been a dream come true to work for, and it's elevated my career to things I'd never expect. And now I can get on the phone or a Zoom call with people like you guys or vice presidents of teams that will take my call kind of because of the success that I've had at Staples Center, that we have had at Staples Center. And they'll share a hot coffee or cold beer with me on our podcast. So it's a dream. I still get blown away a little bit every time I think back. So the Lakers just sent us these. I'm not sure how much of your show is audio and how much of your show is visual, but they sent us like these little replica Larry O'Brien NBA championship trophies.
That's cool.
I put it by my computer and I'm blown away every time I look at it that I was a part of something like that. And I just think it's the coolest thing I'll ever do in life. But I'm peaking in my mid to late 20s. That's a problem, right? I don't know that I should be too comfortable there. Every so often you hear a story of a ball player. There's one in the World Series this year, the third baseman for the Tampa Bay Rays named Peter Brousseau, who didn't get drafted, just made his way to one of those million minor league teams it feels like there are, and somebody saw something in him and went, okay, yeah, this is going to work, and this guy can make it. But when you're not drafting 70 something to 100 players into your organization every year, that's just not going to happen.
Wow.
And there's now less places for them to go. So minor league baseball got hit especially because a lot of those are operated like mom and pop shops. They're not like Major League Baseball where they can fall back on TV deals or revenue and sponsorships that are shared throughout the league. So minor league baseball will get hit very hard. And unfortunately, there's a lot of markets that like their team and like a place to go with their family that just won't ever get it back.
Oh, it's the greatest experience ever. I mean, we used to go see the King County Cougars out in King County, Illinois. My
Scof, too much information. Very different.
Yeah,
different demographics.
Show, right?
Yeah, and I think part of that call was that even though I work in the NBA, maybe this isn't the best thing to admit out to the public, is that I have zero idea how the hell the NBA salary cap works. Because in other sports, you know, the NHL has a you know, even as much of, they break it down to a week or a day based on how much you get paid and whatnot. So it's a hard cap where you get, what is it, 90 something, I think, or 80?
80, I think it was 81 million, 82 million was the cap that they agreed on for the next 2 years, I think, something around there.
And there's not really ways around it, right? In the NHL, you get 81 and what you get is 81. But in the NBA, there are very different ways to manipulate and burn over the salary cap. So, for example, the day that we are recording this, if you look at every NBA team's cap, currently there are 3 teams that are not over the cap, and that's it. Just 3. Actually, sorry, I misread that. 2. There are 2 teams, the Atlanta Hawks and the Oklahoma City Thunder, the only 2 teams that are under the salary cap.
Wow.
And then you go as far down to like the Golden State Warriors are $60 million over the cap, and there's not really consequences for that as far as like being able to stop for a season. You do pay luxury tax, so it comes out of the owner's pocket, but it does not prohibit you from going in. Versus, let's say the NHL, let's pretend the LA Kings are $2 million over the salary cap. They can't play until they fix that. They can't start the season until they get back under the cap. And in the NBA, that's not the case. Teams can kind of blow past that however they need to. So that's the weird one. And part of why that is because the NBA seems to have figured out a way to get players paid faster. So in baseball, for example, when you get drafted and you go up and you get to your team often has about 5 years of contract control for you before you ever really see a significant payday. And there are things around that, but essentially for your first 5 years of your baseball career, you're making whatever the team tells you you're making. As you start to get closer to that 5-year mark, there's something called arbitration, where you're basically year by year, you go to like literally small claims court with your team, and they negotiate kind of what the standard rate is for you to get paid and whatnot. So you're not making bare bones, you're not making the minimum of $500,000 a year, but you're not making what you could be making on an open market setting. Basketball, the way that they've kind of come about that is part of the CBA has hard numbers of max contracts. Mm-hmm. So that says you can equate to, I think it's 30-something% of the entire team salary cap. So that's a number of like, that's how high you can go. So when you're talking about a player like LeBron James or Kevin Durant or one of the better players in the NBA, there's less negotiating room. You go, I want a max contract, and someone will give you a max contract.
Wow.
There's also things called the mid-level exception in the NBA, where basically you can pay a guy $9 million and he doesn't count against the cap, right? So there's ways to manipulate it there. But in the NBA, what you find is players hit free agency quicker than they would in basketball. Usually your contract's somewhere around 3 or 4 years before you get paid. And you find that the numbers, because I am doing a poor job of explaining this, but basically the NBA has a similar cap number than the NFL, and the NFL has to pay 54 guys or 51 guys make the cap number, and in the NBA it's 14 to 15. So there's more money to go around, and you're getting to an opportunity to make that money quicker. In football, there's a hard cap number that's just designed by the collective bargaining agreement. They say you get X percentage of it, and the NBA does that too. And then in baseball, there is no salary cap. There's just a luxury tax. So I think the number is in $220 million. I think it's somewhere around that number, where a baseball team can spend up to that on player salary and receive no penalty. But every dollar they go over, they pay $1 per dollar thing in luxury tax. If you offend it 2 times consecutively, that number goes up to 1.5. So every real dollar you're spending over the cap, you're spending that in real money, and then you pay into the owner's pot $1.50 into that. And then if you repeat for a 3rd straight year, it's double money. So what that really means is, let's say your team's over the cap and you bring on a guy who's worth $30 million in his contract. You're paying him $30 million. It costs you that. And it's costing you $60 million out of the owner's pocket to throw back into the whole system.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So there are ways, at least in baseball, where you have some kind of room. In football, there are not. This is the number you get. And in basketball, you need a science degree, a horticulture degree. You need to be able to see into the future, and you need to be able to read minds, or else you have no idea what's going on with that cap.
Yep.